Hello, I'm Lizzie from mybpdblog. I like cats, image macros, Doctor Who, Harry Potter. I'm really creative, spend a lot of time watching things on Netflix though. I have a degree in illustration and I also have a diagnosis of BPD. BPD stands for borderline personality disorder, which is a mental health condition. It can also be known as emotionally unstable personality disorder. The human personality is made up of the ways in which we think, feel, behave and interact with other people. And a personality disorder can be understood as somebody having really significant difficulty with most or all of these things across all areas of their life, pretty much all the time. There are different types of personality disorder, and a personality disorder, in my opinion, is just a label to describe a set of symptoms. So I'm going to run through the symptoms of borderline personality disorder, or BPD. Lack of sense of identity. This can involve regular changes in goals, tastes, opinions, appearance, and we can be quite heavily influenced by people around us who have a very strong sense of self. Chronic feelings of emptiness. This feels kind of like sinking or hollowness, or being really lost, or just having lost everything, just having no hope. It's really horrible. Dissociation. There are various forms of dissociation, ranging from very mild to very severe. There's depersonalization, where you feel very cut off from yourself and your senses, and sometimes you can feel like you don't have control over your own body. There's derealization, where the world becomes quite unreal and things will tend to lack depth or colour or definition or even meaning. Then there's complete dissociation from the world and yourself and your body and your memories, and people can end up having significant gaps in their memory. Somebody with BPD might experience any level of dissociation. Unstable and intense emotions. Emotions are stronger than in the average person. We've got a lot of raw nerves and buttons that are easily pressed. Moods change quickly, sometimes from 1 hour to the next. Mood states don't usually last longer than a couple of days though. These intense emotions are a response to how we perceive the world. Comorbidity, not actually a symptom but worth mentioning. There is a high rate of other mental health diagnoses along with borderline personality disorder, so that's having more than one diagnosis at the same time. Things like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. So it can be a whole mixed bag of problems. Self-harming behaviours. Self-harm is a coping mechanism and can be used for a number of reasons. It can be used if you're dissociating and you want to bring awareness back into your body by inflicting physical pain. It can be a way of making sense of emotional pain. It can also be an outlet for anger and frustration. It is considered a dysfunctional coping mechanism, but it is very habit forming and it's very, very difficult once you've started to actually stop. Suicidal ideation and attempts. Feeling suicidal or hopeless can be a reaction to struggling to cope with living with borderline personality disorder. It can also be made worse by other conditions like depression and bipolar disorder. Suicide is a very real risk. 70% of people diagnosed with borderline personality disorder will attempt suicide at least once. 8 to 10% of people diagnosed with borderline personality disorder will succeed. Impulsivity. This is impulsive and often compulsive behaviour. It can involve drinking, taking drugs, taking huge risks, unsafe sex, shopping, gambling, running away, and making really huge life-changing decisions. Abandonment issues. This is usually a fear of abandonment, rejection, or invalidation. You can be afraid of being alone or feeling lonely. Starting to get close to people can trigger fears of abandonment and can prompt some pretty frantic behaviour. You can consciously or unconsciously start pushing people away. You could become clingy or possessive and end up driving that person away. These fears can be self-fulfilling, as the behaviours end up creating more loneliness and distance from other people. Intense or unstable relationships. We can have problems relating to others due to the changeability of our mood and the behaviours associated. We can often be perceived as unpredictable and volatile. This can cause friction in relationships with family, friends, loved ones, peers, colleagues, etc. Splitting. We literally split the world into good and bad. We find it very, very hard to see positives and negatives at the same time. For example, it can be very difficult to cheer us up when we're miserable, or equally difficult to warn us of the risks of what we're doing if we think we're having a good time. We see people as either all good or all bad. A good person has no flaws or imperfections at all. When they make a mistake, which ends up hurting us, we can rapidly shift into thinking that they are entirely a bad person and their only goal is to hurt us. Irrational thought. This can be obsessive, delusional, intrusive, and scary thoughts. Beliefs about yourself, the world around you, and other people can be completely irrational when you're feeling a particularly strong emotion. Emotional thought and rational thought don't really coexist at the same time. It's very, very hard to break negative thought patterns. Finally, the symptoms that I've talked about may manifest in many different ways and in any combination. Each person with BPD is unique. We are so much more than our illness. BPD has amazing potential for recovery. It's very hard work, it's a slow process, and it feels like it takes forever, but it's worth it. I personally have a long way to go, but then again, I have already made significant progress. Thank you for watching this video, and I really appreciate you taking the time to try and better understand the diagnosis of BPD.